Hello everyone, this is Layla from BasicsLegal, and our topic today is trademarks and franchising. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a legal consultant specializing in intellectual property and alternative dispute resolution and commercial law in general. I'm also an educator, and as you can see, I make educational content for free for everyone. Before we start, I'd like to note that in all my videos, I abstain from using big words or legal jargon because these videos are designed for everyone who wishes to learn and not get bored. You will also notice that I oversimplify certain concepts and legal principles for educational purposes. Let's move on to our talk. Trademarks are a form of intellectual property rights that lay the basis of the practice of franchising. Through trademarks, you obtain the rights to your brand, which you can then lease to others for commercial purposes. One-off leases are super common and are governed by simple transfer of rights contracts. But franchising is another form of leasing IP rights to another party in return for profits and in attempts to raise capital. Franchising is officially defined as the transfer of the rights to sell a trademarked product through a system prescribed by a franchisor who owns the trademark. So franchisor is the owner of the trademark and franchisee is the one leasing to use that trademark. However, with franchising, the contracts become more complex and the use of the rights entails more elements and conditions and other rights, which we will talk about in detail. We can't skip to today's practices without talking about the past. The word itself comes from Old French, which means privilege or freedom. The exact history of franchising is not known, or at least accurate information regarding its origins is not universally accepted. But reading upon it, we can see the increasing practice of franchising during the Industrial Revolution in the US. The Americans generally believe that the first person to use franchising as a form of increasing their capital was the founder of Singer Sewing Machine Company, way before the Industrial Revolution. Seeing the success of this method over the years, companies like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, and others that we know today decided to make use of it. By the 1690s, over 1,000 brands had different franchises all around the country. This was also due to the increased nationwide advertisements, which resulted in the citizens of most remote states wanting access to the products and services of certain brands in their vicinity. Franchising has become so successful that it is deemed one of the most profitable investments today. According to the Franchise Association's Economic Report of 2022, there are over 800,000 successful franchises operating in the US and millions more around the world. Franchising also survived many political and economic tribulations over the century, such as pandemics, coups, wars, recessions, and natural disasters. Naturally, all this wouldn't be possible without having your trademark and other related rights registered. When we talk about trademarks, people commonly think about logos, but trademarks can be as simple as colors. Think of Tiffany & Co.'s minty color. Think of Red Bull's silver and blue combination. Or other brands' unique color or color combinations that are distinct to them or that they've become an indicative feature of a certain product in the eyes of the consumer. I'm talking about colors, right now. But it's not only colors. Unique shape of a product, design, technical parts of a product. It could be a unique offer of a service, for example, Uber, you name it. In order to successfully register your trademark, it needs to be unique and not a copy of another's mark. The main aim is the trademark shouldn't be designed and used in a way to confuse the consumer as to the origins of the product. The trademark should be fully registered and the permissions should preferably cover the regions where you would like the products to be sold and where the business is operating generally. The topic of trademark is a vast topic on its own. And one day, when we talk about different types of intellectual property rights, which we will talk about, we can explore more on that too. We simply cannot imagine the current commercial climate without registering relevant trademark rights. What do I mean by registering the rights by region? If my trademark is created and registered, let's say, in the US, and I want to use it in a European country, my mark is not 100% protected. You can contest an infringing party, which is basically the thief, but it would be harder to prove that you are the original holder of the mark in the courts of a country whose jurisdiction doesn't recognize you as the automatic owner of the mark. You would need to provide a dozen more documents as evidence, such as you being the first to use that product in a specific market or first person to showcase it in popular platforms, and many other ways. Each country has an IP office and each has a trademark registry department. If your business is operating within a jurisdiction, it should preferably be registered there. However, I always advise people to register their mark globally. This can be done mainly in two ways. First, you register in a country where you want your products to be sold, and preferably that country is a member state of the World Intellectual Property Office, which is WIPO. Secondly, you can directly apply via the Madrid protocol system of the WIPO and protect your mark internationally. Once you decide where you intend your products to be sold or your services to be offered, that is where you register your mark. Once registered, you can now safely and confidently grow your business. Once your brand picks up substantial interest from consumers and you create a loyal customer base, you will eventually attract investors, corporations, and other business owners. You may even wish to grow faster and raise capital by allowing these businesses to invest in your company to open a new branch. That is when the franchising happens. Franchising is a lucrative business and is deemed a moderate to low-risk investment depending on the brand. Instead of creating and building your business from scratch, you can utilize the reputation of an established brand and expect good profit. It can be hard and time-consuming to grow a business, especially in saturated markets. As I mentioned in the previous slide, franchising is a system where both the mark owner, which is the franchisor, leases their registered mark to the business owner or the investor, which is the franchisee, who then operates the business as given within their contracts. This mutually beneficial system allows franchisors to grow their businesses by sharing costs, risks, and profits. In return, the franchisee can invest in an established business and lower the risk of failure while both making profit. Now you may ask me, but Leyla, isn't it the franchising system same as licensing? Yes, franchising is also a type of licensing. However, franchising contracts are a lot more complex and can encapsulate other related rights too. In order to show you the differences, I found this comparison table on the internet. I'd like to note that I don't know the owner or the author of this table, so I did not create it. But this is the only one I found where I think it clearly shows and simply shows the difference between licensing and franchising without going too much in detail. As you can see here, licensing and franchising are usually governed by different laws and regulations. Registration, though recommended, is not compulsory for licensing cases, whereas it is for franchising. With licensing, the owner of the IP simply leases the rights to use the IP to licensee without providing too much assistance, so there's not too much involvement. In franchise system, the IP owner or the franchisor exerts considerable control over the franchisee's business and the process. As you can see from examples such as Coca-Cola and Costa in the coffee shop, the products or the service provided is exactly the same everywhere in each branch, be it in France, Dubai, England, you name it. There are other alternatives to franchising, which we will talk about at the end of this video. There are different types of franchising. Firstly, business format franchise. This is one of the most common formats. It is where the franchisor not only leases their name, logo, or product alone, but the whole system. These include things such as quality control and accounting systems, operating procedures, advertising, the promotions, provision of training to the franchisees' employees, which is the most important, I think, and many other aspects of franchisors' business. Secondly, product and distribution franchise. These are governed by simpler contracts where the franchisor leases their name, logo, design, basically the finished product to the franchisee to sell them or distribute them to the market. There's no training, no involvement in the way distributors' business operates, and no assistance, unlike the business format. Thirdly, manufacturing franchises. The industry that uses manufacturing franchises the most, I would say, is the automobile industry. It is where established brands contract with manufacturing companies, where significant business information is handed over to the manufacturer to create and distribute the product to consumers. For example, Airbus company in the UK. They contract with other airline companies from different countries to manufacture different airplane models, depending on the size and needs. The manufacturing company adheres to the specifications and designs put forward by the airline companies in exchange for the manufacturing quality and technical know-how provided by the manufacturer. The first three of these are the most common, since you might have heard them more often. The others are also common, but only used in specific situations. Let me note that these aren't the only types of franchising. There are other systems of franchising, commons, and finance. These are such as investment franchise, management franchise, conversion franchise, and many, many more. But today, just for the sake of this video, I'll talk about only three of them in detail. There are many well-known franchises that use the business format kind of franchising, such as Starbucks, KFC, Krispy Kreme. You may all know these brands. Under this arrangement, franchisees must pay fees in order to use the franchisor's exclusive trademark, goods, and services. A chicken wing from a KFC in London will basically be the same as the one from Birmingham. So you can identify the brand by this consistency. Many aspiring business owners find this type of franchising appealing because of the degree of assistance and involvement provided by the franchisor. The franchisee brings in the capital to build and create the new branch, which they'll end up operating, and in exchange, the franchisor will lease the essence of their established brand to the franchisee, so the consumer will identify the business. I think one of the main benefits of this is that the advertisement will be done by the franchisor, which will announce the launch of the new branch. Statistics show that as a consumer, you are more likely to choose to go to a new place or new address if you are familiar with the brand compared to an unknown one. Also, as an entrepreneur starting out, this type of franchising is basically a school and safe space to learn and experiment to see if you are able to run businesses, all while getting the support from the experienced franchisor. Another common franchise model is the product or distribution franchise. As we mentioned with the distribution franchise, an entrepreneur or business owner is not going to get full support by the franchisor. For some entrepreneurs, this may actually allow more freedom for them to sell their trademarked products in their own way. For example, you know the sunglasses brand Ray-Ban. It is a globally well-known and trademarked brand, and you can find it in many shops around the world. You go to a specs shop, and you'll find them among the other glasses showcased on the same stand. The business owner, specs shop, contracts directly with Ray-Ban or other master distributor, who then leases the products to the business owner with attached permissions to use their IP. So they can then placate the logo on their drawers, bags, outside the windows, just to display the sale of it. However, there's no training, no advertisement, no financial or accounting help, no analysis. None of this is offered to the franchisee. Another example would be supermarkets or grocery stores. They contract with the brands this way. That's how you're able to see hundreds and hundreds of different brands showcased next to each other in the aisles in the grocery stores. Another franchising format is manufacturing or production. As we mentioned earlier, manufacturing franchises where the franchisor grants the manufacturing rights to the franchisee. But with this format, the franchisee should sell or distribute the goods under the brand and trademark of the franchisor. So once the goods are manufactured, the franchisor's additional requirements regarding the format of sales apply. The manufacturing franchise business model is also common in beverage, food, and clothing industries such as Nestle, Hyundai, and PepsiCo, and etc. I would also like to talk about master franchising. The reason I didn't include this in the list is because master franchising may not always be considered a type of franchising, because master franchising is basically brands contracting with a well-known local brand in a country or region so they can have their branches in those regions. Master franchises act as an umbrella brand, or some may call it a holding company, for these franchises. Let me give you an example. Because I've lived in Dubai, the company that pops into my head right now is Al-Futtaim. In the UAE, almost every foreign brand operates under similar local companies acting as master franchises. Al-Futtaim is one of the biggest ones, as they cover brands from different industries such as real estate, retail, automobile, banking, manufacturing, you name it. And if I'm not mistaken, they've got Zara, Debenhams, Suzuki, IKEA, Xbox, and many brands operating under them. There are many brands working with different master franchises like this, not just in the UAE and definitely not just in the Middle East, but it's very common all around the world in different countries. For some nations, having to buy foreign brands from established local distributors means they can trust the originality and quality of the products. For the brands, contracting with master franchise also acts as a source of trust and confidence when they enter a foreign market. For governments, it also ensures that the brands or foreign companies that are operating in their territories are well supervised by their local and trusted companies, and they are operating within regulations. A case that I remember reading about was that of a foreign brand operating in a Middle Eastern country, I'm not going to name the country, where the contract included the condition that anything else they sell is permissible except any of their product containing alcohol. The brand imported their products containing alcohol, but they argued that it was for promotional purposes, just to announce their new product, and it wasn't for sale. What happened then was that the courts of that country ordered inquiries into the supervision or lack thereof of the master franchise that directly contracted with the brand. Needless to say, master franchises carry most of the responsibilities of the operations of a brand. I want to briefly talk about the pros and cons of franchising for both franchisee and the franchisor. Firstly, let's talk about the advantages of franchising to the franchisee. Of course, as we've seen from this talk, degree of assistance or involvement is a big plus. This is actually the core benefit of franchising system in general to anyone who invests in franchise. Imagine this advertising is done for you. The selection of training of the employees is done for you. The design, the financial analysis and advising, everything really. All of that, which businesses that start out must do it themselves, which is every first-time owner or business owner or entrepreneur will tell you how difficult it is. Secondly, the benefit of using an established brand. There is an existing and loyal customer base, which you won't have to work hard to build. They will just follow wherever the new branch is. More customers, more profit. Subsequently, I want to talk about the low failure risk. Having all of what we talked about earlier, these factors make it easier for businesses to succeed and stay in business or in the market for longer. Getting your brand to recognition and gaining customers is a lengthy process, which you'll bypass once it's a well-known franchise. Double that with assistance and wider involvement of franchisor, your business will have low-risk failure. Last but not least, the profits. If you have money to invest with low to zero risk, franchise is an excellent choice. Your business will make you money with a great degree of assistance, so all you will do is operate it daily, to supervise it from afar, and watch that cash flow. There are also disadvantages to this method for franchisees. And first of all, there are the restrictions that come with the perks. As we know, especially with the business format franchise, there are restrictions for the franchisee, and the franchisee must run the business as requested and legally required by the franchisor. Once the business is established and the franchisee may wish to make different changes or do everyday things differently, they will see that the restrictions may make it more difficult to do so. I was told by someone who's running a franchise, running a branch, that they once had to wait 3 months for the parent company to approve the suggestion that they made regarding the fact that they need to change the door of the branch, because the windy nature of the city made it impossible to maintain that door. The door kept breaking because of the strong winds. So they could not act on their own until approval came from above regarding one simple change, which is to change the door. So you will see how the restrictions apply in this case. Secondly, there are the initial investment costs. In my experience, many entrepreneurs or first-time business owners were usually put off or disheartened by franchise businesses due to the high cost of establishing them. The building work, the legal fees, and other initial fees, most of these are laid on the franchisee in return for all the support and brand name from the franchisor. But what I always advise is that the costs are worth it if they give you a sense of security in the business you're investing in. Another one is the imbalance between the parties. Usually one party is a well-known global or regional commercial superpower, and the other is either an SME, small or medium enterprise, or an individual business owner. In practice, the party, which is often the franchisor, that has all the access to legal assistance and has a large influence on the legal practice and market, is feared by the party that doesn't have all that. So if there is a breach of contract or unfair conditions within a contract, the business owner may have less leverage over the negotiations to make amendments or raise an issue. I have seen cases where some franchisors do not have a set fee structure, so they can adjust the fees they offer based on the franchisee they're contracting with. This may put some franchisees in an unfair position. This may also be the case, especially in business format franchise contracts. Last but not least, there is no financial privacy. The extensive degree of assistance with financial help comes with open book practice. As a franchisee, you have to report or allow full-time supervision of the income and profits by the franchisor. This is normal and acceptable, and it is a part of such contracts. Financial information also counts as confidential information regarding the brand. So the franchisor will most likely involve their financial team or an approved third party to do the financial analysis and the reporting. This way, any leakage of such information that is deemed sensitive may be prevented. What are the pros of franchising for the franchisor? Well, growth is often the main factor for a brand owner in deciding to go for a franchise. Franchises offer an excellent boost to financial and brand growth in general. Because while you're busy running the main bits of the company or your brand, the branches are run by other business owners, leaving you with more time and energy to think about innovations and ways to change or grow your business. On top of that, of course, are investments that are crucial to the franchise's growth, any brand's growth. With the new franchise agreements comes the new capital. You don't need to parade your brand around different exhibitions or do pitches to attract uninterested investors. So you get the point. In your own company, you basically supervise everyone. Anyone who's run or is currently running a business knows how hard, time-consuming, and energy-consuming it is to supervise a whole team. With subsidies, which we'll mention in a bit, the brand owner carries the responsibility of supervising and managing the staff. They need to either personally attend or supervise the team or appoint someone who will. When a franchisee takes on the responsibility of running the business, they will be on the ground supervising the staff and their day-to-day performance. The franchisee will do the performance reviews, employment interviews, and set out the weekly to-do lists for them. The disadvantages for the franchisor can include the potential for disputes. As we talked about in the previous slide, initially things may seem smooth because, of course, the contract clearly lays out the terms and conditions for the parties, negotiations are in place. But once the business is up and running, the franchisee who's on the ground, as I said, they're always most of the time in the branch, seeing what works and what doesn't, may want to raise issues with the franchisor. A franchisor who's not always or may never be in or around the business may never even see them as issues and proceed to dismiss them. There are many things that can be source of disputes, not just these. These could be things such as breach of contract, it's one of the main ones, misuse of franchisor's trademark, failure to provide the agreed degree of assistance by the franchisor, misrepresentation of the services by a franchisor, and many other different types of disputes of different natures. The franchisee may also wish to open their own business after a few years in the franchise business, which is totally common actually. And in fact, most businessmen use franchises as a stepping stone towards building their own businesses. The way franchisors work around to prevent this from happening is to include non-competence clauses in their contracts. This means the franchisee owner is not allowed to open a business that is a direct competitor to the franchisor's business while they are contracted with one another. And usually disputes that stem from such breaches also act as a contributor to diminishing partnerships. Another disadvantage is the loss of complete control over the brand. As we just covered, once you share the management of the business with other business owners, you can't always be fully involved in the way the business is run, especially when the franchise has multiple or hundreds of different branches around the world. I'll give you an example that popped into my head. Dior branch in Rome, because I've seen that one. It has a distinct style suited to the sandy, grainy colored style of the city with no flashy logos. Not just Dior, other brands as well. They're like located next to each other. They don't have flashy logos. They have exactly the same design outside. This means the brand owner has incomplete control over the way their business is showcased, because the municipality is there, or the local brands, the local master franchises. They don't allow the original brand owner to placate their logos, their design in their own way. So you lose the control over the way your business is displayed in this matter. I'm just giving you this one example, but there are other ways this can be restricted. Another way I could think of was, in order for the businesses to run smoothly, the brand owner needs constant and full-time advanced support from a financial and legal team, especially a legal team that is tailored to manage the contracts, obtain relevant permits, negotiate different venues, and run legal errands. These require hours and days of work that will initially be the responsibility of the brand owner. Laws and regulations must be researched and followed, especially in cases where the branch is in a different region or country, in a country where certain laws, restrict and prohibit certain products and services. You remember we talked about them in the master franchise slide. So due diligence on laws is usually become responsibility of the franchisor. Here are some of the interesting stats on franchising from different studies over the years, but particularly in the last 3 years. I want to read some of these out loud so you'll be familiar with the numbers. McDonald's is the largest franchise in the world with over 112 billion in global sales in just 2021. With nearly 43,000 individual restaurants, Subway has the most outlets of any global franchise. There are more than 750,000 franchise establishments in the US alone. A new franchise opens every minute during a single business day globally. And more than 300 companies begin franchising operations each year. And let me tell you something, these numbers can't be obtained unless there are successful and effective commercial contracts in place. The typical length of a franchise agreement is 10 to 20 years. After it expires, the parties can discuss whether to extend, terminate, or make amendments based on the new agreements. The franchise contract spells out the responsibilities of both the franchisor and the franchisee for the period, as well as the conditions under which the franchise can operate. These contracts are what we call self-sustaining, which means that in cases of breach, the parties can use the clauses given in these contracts to settle their disputes without having too much reliance on the laws. Just like any other contract, the way a franchise contract is drafted will either make or break the commercial relationship. The business will either run smoothly or cause disputes. From all the pros and cons we talked about today, most of them can be avoided if the contracts between the parties are fair, precise, and written effectively. The conditions provided in these contracts should be self-explanatory and leave no room for discretion. Confidentiality, non-competence, force majeure, and the responsibilities of the parties should all be clearly stated before any party puts their signature on them. Lastly, I would like to briefly talk about the alternatives to franchising. You might have heard about these words at work or daily from social media or from family and friends. Firstly, I just want to quickly talk about subsidiary. We mentioned earlier. Subsidiary is basically a company deciding to open their own branch on their own different or new location without contracting with other businesses or business owners. This is basically opening one branch of your own on your own. So this is definitely not a franchising. Then I want to go on and talk about distributorships. So legal definition of distributorship is where a company supplies goods to shops and other businesses, or it has a right to supply goods to shops and businesses. Secondly, there is licensing, which is similar to franchising, but we've established the difference between the content and complexity of their contracts. There's the agency services, where the agent acts as a referral or assistance or just a third party. An agency is popular in the service industry, by the way. It is basically a legal representative of the main entity. We have joint ventures where companies merge or contract to work together on projects or creation of products for a period of time. Also, we have acquisition, where bigger companies buy the known brands and become their parent company. I want to show you this chart, I guess. This is the depiction of a few parent companies owning famous brands that we know and use in our daily lives. Pretty impressive, isn't it? All these brands you see here, each has all of these systems in their practices, like these systems. They each has agency, subsidiary, joint ventures, licensing, distributorships, and most important of them all is franchising. And the reason everyone around the world know these is due to successful franchising systems. Thank you for listening today. And I hope you all learned a thing or two about the franchising system, which is a huge topic. I spent 2 months trying to reduce a vast topic to a less than hour-long video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to follow our new page on Instagram. The link will be given in the description. So thank you again. Bye for now.